Hey, what's up, everybody? This is CJ, better known as the Sliders Review, and I have just now finally watched season 5 of Sliders. I debated over and over if I was really gonna watch this or not. Originally, I was gonna just buy it on DVD since it came down in price, but that fear in my head that this season might really suck, I decided to opt out. But a friend of mine told me I should still try to check it out. So I didn't know what to do since it's not on TV no more, but I was able to find every episode on YouTube. So with that in mind, I told myself I'm just going to treat this 5th season as kind of like a reboot since it's been so many years since it last aired, and just take it what it is and pretend like it's completely different, like cast and show and stuff like that. Well, even that wasn't enough for me to like the season. I still think the season sucks, and I couldn't find not one episode in the 18 episodes that was any good. So here is the true rundown of the 5th season of Sliders. Okay, the last time I did this, I've only seen the first episode of season 5, and I read what the other ones were about. But this time I got to see what the entire thing's about. So here we go. Just to let you know right here, right now, it sucks. It's terrible. It's just bad. Some of the acting's bad, all of the storytelling's bad, and it changes everything from the past 4 seasons, and totally just doesn't make any sense. Okay, let's go a little background from the past seasons. As you all know, seasons 1 through 4, well, pretty much really seasons 1 through 3, were all about alternate worlds, different outcomes, historical events. And, you know, there was a lot of comedy, some action, some adventure in those first 2 seasons. In the 3rd season, they decided, okay, well, let's make this an action-packed sex type show. So everything changed to where we had monsters in just about every episode, or like a cleavage or an upskirt type shot. And pretty much every female on the show wore like a pair of short shorts, tight pants, or like a really short skirt, even though they was like a cop or a doctor or a scientist, something like that. Season 3 was the beginning of a downfall for the entire series, with the whole monsters, the whole sexism, and most importantly, the departure of the professor. The reason why the professor died in that season is because he couldn't get along with the producers and executive producers. One of the new guys that took over was a guy named David, who took over from Tracy. And those two had problems so much that it resulted in the guy who played the professor getting fired. And in came the character of Maggie Beckett. Now, I don't really feel like going into like these people's real names because their real names are like very hard to pronounce. So I'm just going to call them what they were on the show. I don't want to make that mistake like I did in my other videos. So with the introduction of the Maggie character, that would cause the Wade character, also known as Sabrina Lloyd, to fight not only on the show, but off the show. And they could not get along so well that Sabrina, aka Wade, decided, you know what, I'm going to quit the show. One main reason why she wanted to quit is because supposedly, now this is supposedly what I read online, I don't know if it's true or not, but Sabrina was engaged to one of the crew members. The Maggie character, her name's Kari, decided, you know, to be a little bratty and poke fun at that and basically make fun of her. It hurt Sabrina so bad that supposedly she locked herself in her trailer and wouldn't come out for like a 4-day shoot. Also, Sabrina wanted a pay raise. Supposedly the guys on the show were getting paid $40,000 an episode, but Sabrina was only getting paid like $20,000 an episode. So when she kept asking for the pay raise, David, the guy who ruined Sliders, said pretty much, well, since you're going to be asking for more money and you and Kari can't get along and Kari's not asking for more money, we're going to pretty much just stick with her and stuff like that. Because Sabrina pretty much gave them an ultimatum of it's either her or Kari. So they picked Kari. Plus Kari was also brought in for sex appeal with her larger chest and cleavage and more raunchier stuff and, you know, stuff like that. And that's what the 3rd season was pretty much all about, with more raunchiness and action-packed and, you know, stuff. And Wade was more of a softer, nicer character and more classier character. Now into the 4th season. 4th season, since they got rid of Sabrina, they brought in Colin Mallory, which is Jerry O'Connor's real-life brother. So pretty much Jerry brought his brother onto the show. And the show changed dramatically because it got canceled from Fox, got picked up by Sci-Fi, and turned into more of a sci-fi-ish type show. Which actually, the 4th season is actually very good. And it's a whole lot better than the 3rd. And especially better than the 5th. So, the new theme of the show is Quinn is actually not from the original Sliders Earth. He's actually from Chromat Prime, which you all remember the Chromats introduced into the 2nd season. So the theme of the show now is for Quinn to find his brother Colin, and they find Chromat Prime, reintroduce them with their original birth parents so they can find a virus or cure, a weapon of some sort to destroy the Chromats off Remy's home planet. And Remy, in 4th season, him and Wade got separated because Wade is now in a breeder's camp. Terrible, just terrible. Now, when it comes to David, I don't want to talk smack about him only because he's dead in real life. And he died the day after my birthday, which is kind of ironic and weird and creepy in a way. But he is the dude who basically ruined Sliders. But because he's dead, I'm not going to go into a full rant about him, because that would just be disrespectful. I'm just going to say, hey, you screwed up. Now, here we go, 5th season. Now, the first episode starts off with Sliders going to the vortex. They go into a parallel Earth. And, what happened? Quinn is missing, and so is Colin. Well, this is explained by Dr. Geiger, who's the new bad guy of the show. He merged Quinn's body into his duplicate, another Quinn Mallory. Now, this new Quinn Mallory doesn't look anything like Quinn. It's like one of the few times you ever have a double that's not identical. The only time we ever seen that was in 3rd season with Logan St. Clair. Colin, however, is just lost in the vortex. I don't know if he's going to another parallel Earth or he's just in between, just floating around the vortex. The reason why this happened is because Jerry Quinn wanted to be an executive producer of the 5th season. I believe he was one in the 4th season, but for some reason in the 5th season they didn't really want him to be one. So after they couldn't come to this agreement, Jerry either decided to quit or the producers of the show decided to fire him. I don't know which is which, because the truth about this show, like, it never really comes out till years later. Like, we couldn't find out the real reason why the professor really left and why Wade really left until years later after the show got canceled. So I'm not really sure if Jerry was fired or he just quit on his own. But after that, Jerry just went on to do like other TV shows and movies and stuff like that. So pretty much since the Colin character was brought in because he was Jerry's real brother, they decided, well, you know what, we really don't need you no more, because the only reason why you came here is because of your brother. And to kind of like a slap in your brother's face, we're just going to get rid of you altogether. I told you that David dude's evil. So, we need 2 new cast members for the 5th season. So what did they decide to do? Well, since Quinn Mallory's double doesn't look anything like him, but Quinn is merged in him, we're going to bring him along. And we're going to need a scientist type person, so we're going to bring along this new chick by the name of Diane. Pretty much these 2 people cannot act, period. Like, their acting is terrible. But it gets better as the season progresses, but in the first couple episodes, yeah, it's just terrible. Mallory, played by Robert Floyd, he's more risky. He's more of a daredevil. He's more of a bad boy than the other Quinn Mallory was. Pretty much he grew up, you know, just like living on the streets and getting in trouble, breaking the car, stuff like that. And after he became paraplegic, he pretty much changed his life over a little bit nicer, you know, stuff like that. But of course, when he's merged with Quinn, he doesn't become smarter. By no means. He's still the same person he used to be, with just all of Quinn's memories. And one of those memories is that he loves Maggie Beckett. But Maggie ain't having it. Period. She does not want this dude whatsoever. And she's always referring to him as Mallory and saying that she wants her Quinn back. Well, every time he hears my Quinn, he gets defensive and say, I am your Quinn. I am Quinn Mallory. Don't treat me like I'm some science experiment or some other person. It's basically like he's having like a Bruce Banner Hulk type thing, where every time Hulk hears the name Bruce Banner, he goes irate and just wants to destroy stuff. Diane, played by Timby Luke, I can't pronounce her name, that's why I call her Diane. She's more very, very scientific. She's probably more smarter than Quinn, the professor, and Colin all combined. She loves science. Like, everything about science, she just wants to hear about and wants to, like, experiment with and this and that. She's very, very naive. Like, she'll believe anything you tell her, which always gets her in trouble. She's very nice, and she will help her friends out. Maggie is still the same as she was in season 4. She's no longer the mean person. She's a lot nicer. Rembrandt is still Rembrandt from like season probably 2 to 4. He's no longer that goofy person. He's pretty much the father figure now for the Sliders, and Maggie's pretty much the mother figure for the Sliders. So Diane, being the scientist that she is, she traps Dr. Geiger in kind of like in between worlds. So he's kind of like a shade or like a ghostly figure of like character who's just trapped in between worlds and traveling to new worlds, but has no tactile touch. He can't physically touch or do anything. He's just basically like a shade of a ghost. So they decided, okay, we're gonna help Maggie and Remy try to separate Quinn from their Quinn, who they now call Mallory, and try to find Colin and try to save Rembrandt's planet. The thing about this season is you really don't get a feel for alternate Earths, different historical outcomes that affect the world like you did in the first 2 seasons. This feels slightly more like the 3rd and 4th season combined together, but without the monsters, but a whole lot more sci-fi. This entire season feels like Star Trek, to tell you the truth. Hey, don't get me wrong, I love Star Trek. Next to Sliders, Star Trek is like my favorite show. No matter which series it is, but if I wanted to watch Star Trek, I will watch Star Trek. I don't want to see that on Sliders, and it very much felt like that, especially with the Diane character, who knew so much scientific stuff that made like no sense to us. Completely, utterly sci-fi'd up. The Sliders actually do more harm than they do good for all these parallel Earths. They're not really trying to solve people's problems and save the day like they were in the first 4 seasons. An example is the 2nd episode called Applied Science. In that episode, Mallory is experiencing flashback images from Quinn Mallory's life, and anything that happens to Quinn back in the past apparently now is happening to him in some strange sci-fi-ish type way. Quinn got shot in a casino bar years ago, unseen off camera in any other episode, and now Mallory is experiencing that, and now he has a bullet wound to now prove it. Some mystical sci-fi way it happened. So Diane is trying to find a way to separate Quinn and Mallory, but she ends up finding Dr. Geiger, who has somehow slid to that planet, and like I said before, he's a shade or a ghostly figure. Still alive, but like a ghostly figure. He tricks her into trying to separate the 2 bodies by first giving her what she wanted. See, what she wanted was to help out her double who she found on that world. Her double was like her, a scientific person, but didn't achieve the strides that she has. The Diane from the other world, she pretty much got into a bad relationship with a man, had a child, now she's a single mother, struggling, and she's a student at a university. And Diane, our Diane, is kind of like, wow, this woman is complete opposite of her, because our Diane doesn't have kids. She would never get into a failed relationship. She became an actual scientist, and she put her personal life on hold to pursue her career. So Diane's kind of like, how can I help this woman? Well, Dr. Geiger's kind of like, well, this is the way we can help her. We can do some strange sci-fi Star Trek thing where we can alter all of your duplicates to be just like you. So in some strange sci-fi way, that's what they do. They somehow change the outcome of every duplicate of Diane to end up being more like her. To be more like her, of course, is self-sufficient and all this other stuff, and be a scientist and be successful with money, a house, and career, stuff like that. So in the blink of an eye, in that episode, we see now that the other Diane's daughter no longer exists. She's no longer in a struggling relationship. She's now the head of that scientific firm that they are at. And she's very stubborn and very pissy. This upsets our Diane because she's like, oh no, I've changed this woman's entire personality, and not only that, but I've killed this child that now no longer exists. Well, that's kind of what you wanted to begin with. So they found out they cannot separate Mallory from Quinn, and Dr. Geiger is still evil as could be, and so they still keep him trapped in the world that he's in and send him off to another world, and then they slide just like that without trying to fix the problem. Which is so unlike Sliders, because if they screw up, they at least try to fix things. Also, this kind of breaks a rule from the first 4 seasons. Quinn and both Professor Arturo both state that sliding is never time travel. Now, there are some worlds that move slower or faster than other parallel worlds. Still not time travel, but it's just they move at a different rate and different speed. So if that's true, then how on earth is they're able to change the historical outcome of that one Diana and change her complete history line? How? That's time travel right there. So they totally broke a major Sliders rule. Also, that episode makes absolutely no sense, but the only thing they teaches you is don't meddle in other people's affairs, I guess, which defeats the whole purpose of what sliding's about, because they always interfere in people's lives and stuff. Okay. Oh, by the way, they also still use the Egyptian timer in the 3rd season, which that goes through the ringer throughout this entire season. Okay, another episode where they interfere in people's lives is an episode where Quinn, well, the new Quinn, which we call Mallory, is shot by a laser. This makes him become paralyzed again, because when we first see him, the unstuck man, he's paraplegic. Well, this Quinn's all pissed off and upset because he's all I don't want to be in the wheelchair no more, and I love walking and stuff like that. So they happen to be on a world that have these mystical healers, but these mystical healers work with more science than mysticism. It's they have this special water with these microprobe type things or nanobots, and it's they can restore any illness, plain and simple. So by drinking this water, he's now able to walk, but it also kind of brainwashes you and makes you kind of like one of those holy zealot type people that kind of wants to do harm but kind of don't, and it just makes you mindless and numb and just stupid. Well, by drinking this water, it also killed our Quinn Mallory within his body, so now there's no chance of separating them. So they slide in another world where, they meet this blind girl. And so he gives her the holy water. And now she can see. And now she's possessed by the water and stuff like that. This new world they're on is pretty much the same as the other world. It's slightly different, the same people and stuff. So, of course, him being the holy relic that he is and thinking he's God, he's giving this holy water to, everybody. And then everybody's becoming, odd and weird and moodier and all this other stuff. So our Sliders are okay, how can we fix this? So they find a guy with this scientific Star Trek-ish type device that can disable all of the nanoprobes in the people's bodies. So they do that, and now these people are left with agony because they're oh no, I no longer feel connected with the universe and stuff like that. And then after that, they slide. So it's kind of now these people are left with the decision: do I want to live in agony of not having the holy water in me, or do I want to drink the holy water and be one with the universe and blah, blah, stuff like that? So now they lead them people in basically peril, and that's kind of screwing with them. You know what I'm saying? The timer pretty much still acts the same way it always does, but it's starting to have a little bit of problems after sliding for so long. We discovered that the timer is actually powered by batteries. Yeah, it's a little stupid when you think about it, but when you think about it in a logical kind of way, the original timer, Quinn made that out of a cell phone. And, so of course what a cell phone is going to have? Batteries. And the Egyptian timer was made by the Egyptian people, so I guess they use batteries too on the other world. So at one point in time, they run out of batteries, and they have to go look for batteries now, while they're trapped on a submarine because somehow the timer malfunctioned and slid them underwater. In another episode, for some bizarre reason, the timer is now acting up again, and it needs a gemstone. Yes, I said it, folks, a gemstone. Never knew the timer needed one, but apparently it does, or at least the Egyptian timer does. And they just happen to slide onto a world that has these things called living stones. And living stones have these magical powers and blah, blah, stuff like that. And it's exactly what the timer needs. So now this entire episode is kind of like an Ocean's 11 type episode where they have to break into like a secure vault and like steal these living stones and stuff like that. Well, once Diane fixes the timer and puts the stone in there, she says, well, you know, it has now erased every coordinates in the timer. So now that means even Remy's home planet coordinates are gone. Which makes no sense because the purpose was, of course, to find Remy's planet once they find Quinn's Chromag Prime planet and get the weapon and go to Remy's world and save his world from the Chromags. But now they can't because they don't have the coordinates. So that don't make no sense. Speaking of the Chromags, where are they? Like the entire 4th and 5th season is supposed to revolve heavily around them and the whole Chromag war and them trying to destroy every planet. Well, we really don't get a sense of this in this season. The Chromags pretty much just disappear from storytelling. They only appear in probably about 3 episodes physically and are mentioned in a scatter of probably like 5 episodes probably. First time we see one is in Applied Science. They have this Star Trek-y type device that can read Mallory's thoughts, and he's thinking about Quinn's thoughts, and Quinn's thinking about Chromags, and holographic Chromag appears. Well, in the next episode we find Chromags. It's a really stupid episode. It's a war type episode. The humans and Chromags from Chromag Prime are somehow slid onto an asteroid. Yes, I said an asteroid. That's what Diane figured out it was. They're not on Earth, they're not on the moon, they're not on Mars, they're on an asteroid floating around, I guess you can call the exoplane of sliding. Similar to what Quinn was stuck in season 2 when they thought he was a ghost, and Jillian and the spirits. I don't know how they're able to float on an asteroid and be able to breathe on it. I don't know how it's somehow stuck in the astral plane. It makes no sense. It's stupid storytelling. This is why the 5th season got the show canceled. But while they're on this asteroid, the timer will not work. Something is blocking it. And they find themselves in the midst of a war between the humans and the Chromags from Chromag Prime. And so the humans pretty much force them to fight in their war. They don't want to, but they have to. As they're fighting, the Chromags are looking for a weapon that the humans have on that planet. It's some type of like nuclear bomb type thing or something like that. Or something that gives off radiation. So, of course, they decide, okay, look, we're going to come to a mutual agreement, blah, 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 and put our weapons down. And so the sliders go in this place and they find the weapon. And they also find the thing that's stopping them from sliding. Chromags being what Chromags are, they deceive them, trick them, and kill all the humans there except for the sliders. Well, the sliders are like, okay, look, we disabled the blocking device, and now we're able to slide, and they pretty much just slide off, leaving the weapon there. And I don't know if they said to explode. I can't really remember because I only watched this episode once. Or they just left the weapon there for the Chromags to have so they can terrorize people and stuff like that. Which is something the original sliders would never, ever, ever do. But pretty much every episode is lackluster. There's nothing really that draws you into the storytelling. There's like one episode where coffee is outlawed. And so Rembrandt, his double is in that episode. Normally when Rembrandt has a double, it's his twin brother in real life that plays that character. However, this time his brother did not show up. So Rembrandt has to play himself twice. And pretty much Rembrandt is the bad guy on that planet. He's like some corrupt cop who won't allow people to have coffee, and there's all kind of other stuff. He's having people killed left and right. The mafia is involved, and it's just a really stupid episode that doesn't really resolve to anything. There's also an episode where gasoline is outlawed on Earth, and so because of that, there's no motorized vehicles really, and there's only a few motorized vehicles that ship out the gas and stuff like that. And these outlaw motorcycle bandits pretty much like terrorizing them and killing them and stuff like that. Kind of like a resistance, but they're actually the bad guy. And of course, who's hanging out with them? Mallory, because he's a little rebel at heart and he falls in love with a woman. This Mallory is slightly similar to Quinn, where Quinn was in the 3rd season where he'll find a woman, befriends her, falls in love, and tries to be the hero and stuff like that. Well, this Mallory's pretty much like, he's just a horn dog. He sees a female and he just wants to bone her. And that's exactly what happens in this episode. So after he finds out that she's actually bad as dirt, he tries now to stop her and stuff like that. But these people was pretty much running out of ideas in the 5th season, to where they even had a presidential scandal where Maggie is in a scandal with the President of the United States. She didn't really do anything, but they lied and said she did, because saying that makes him more popular, and that just makes absolutely no sense. And it was a very stupid episode. There's another episode where pretty much Maggie tries to use a vending machine. I think she's a little angry. They sense that they zap her into like a van, Star Trek style, teleporter style. And now she's in a relocation center where they give you a lobotomy and they make you more calm and everything. I think what it was is that freedom of expression is not allowed. Something like that. I can't remember. So then Maggie's, trapped in this building, and she befriends who she thinks is a man, but it's actually a program. And he's on a computer screen. And it's a very, very, very stupid episode that makes absolutely no sense. And there's really no point for me even talking about it. Okay, now there is another episode where they don't want freedom of expression. You're not allowed to paint, not allowed to dance, not allowed to sing, not allowed to be happy, joyful, anything like that. You gotta be serious the entire time. Well, sliders being who they are, they kind of break those rules. And Diane gets kidnapped and placed in a rehab facility. Mallory ends up infiltrating the facility and tries to get her out. Well, since their brains are opposite of our brains, the people kind of screw it up when they try to give her lobotomy and stuff. And they end up somehow giving her magical powers, where she's connected with the entire world and stuff. Basically, she turns into Dark Phoenix. No joke. She is able to kill you with a thought. She's able to do anything and everything, but she's not able to communicate verbally. So they find a scientist guy, and he tries to fix her, and they slide without knowing if it works or not. Well, when they slide, they're like, oh, okay, look, it works. Okay, so there's one episode that revolves all around Maggie, and this Maggie Beckett is an astronaut, and she died while being in space, and there was a big cover-up, and they didn't want the people to know. Maggie's father was also part of that cover-up. Well, another part of the cover-up was aliens. I'm not sure if these was real aliens or not, or these was people that was injected with alien goo and turned them into aliens, but there are now aliens and sliders. I know what you're thinking, Cro-Mags are aliens. No, they're not. Cro-Mags are humans that have evolved, look more like ape people. But yes, these people on this episode are in fact aliens, and you think they're the good guy, but they end up turning into the bad guys. And that makes absolutely no sense, because in the world of sliders, we don't have aliens. Period. So of course, fans were not happy with that episode. Now we get to a really interesting episode. Not a good episode, but a very interesting episode. We slide into a world, and Rembrandt is starting to hear Wade in his head. She's talking to him. We're like, how can that be? Because she's on a breeding camp. Well, apparently we find out that Wade has been placed in a cerebral type facility, because it appears that she has psionic powers. Oh yes, people, apparently our Wade all this time has had psionic telepathic powers and stuff. Makes absolutely no sense. But not only is she like that, but other people in other parallel universes are like that too. So the Cro-Mags decided, hey, that's what we're going to use to power up our sliding devices, and then we'll be able to break the barrier, the Cro-Mag Prime, and slide back onto the home planet. So Wade's all like, oh no, Rembrandt, you have to stop all this, blah, 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 blah. So she now has the power to go all Dark Phoenix and beyond on people, and she's now able to slide the sliders onto the world on which they are now on. And they try to save her and stuff, but they're not able to. So Wade uses her psionic powers to basically blow up the entire facility. This causes a problem with the sliding, because not everybody makes it out. Rembrandt doesn't make it out, but Wade is able to put him in some kind of force field bubble, and then later slide him onto the planet that she slid the other people to. And after she blew this place up, of course she blew herself up. So now Wade is now completely utterly dead in this show, because this is why. David, the man who screwed up sliders, wanted to bring Sabrina back for one episode. Well, she said, okay, she'll come back, but you have to pay me $40,000, just like you do the guy who plays Rembrandt. And he's like, no, we're not going to do that. So she's like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I won't physically appear in the episode, but I'll do a voiceover. So then they get this woman to play Wade, but you never really see her. You see her either in silhouette, or you see her in this tube machine with all these wires in her head and stuff like that. And the woman who they got to play Wade, Sabrina, actually resembles her in the face, and her facial expression is freaky. So since they couldn't agree nothing, they said, okay, once again, we're just gonna kill you off like the professor. And now Quinn is dead, the professor is dead, and now sadly Wade is dead. And Colin is still floating around in the vortex, which they don't even really mention that much. They only mention Colin probably 3 times in 18 episodes, and they don't really go to look for him. We also get an in-depth look of what happened to Rembrandt and Wade when they was on Earth Prime being captive by the Cro-Mags. We find out that Wade and Rembrandt really didn't try to talk to each other when they was in the prison camp, because Cro-Mags can invade your mind. So they pretty much just looked at each other, smiled at each other, but wouldn't say anything because they didn't know they was really the real people or not. Well, when Rembrandt wakes up, bam, Wade was gone. And then he found out that was the real Wade, and he'll never ever see her again. So he's always held that guilt in him. And that's also explained in season 4. Now, in one episode, we meet Dr. Geiger once again. And they find him on the street, talking about, oh no, I screwed up, and blah, blah, blah. And he jumps into this strange vortex-looking thing that kills him. Well, it's not the real Dr. Geiger. The real Dr. Geiger is still floating around in ghostly space. But this Dr. Geiger somehow created his own Earth. Yes, he created his own Earth through his mind. The same way Quinn and Maggie did in that really terrible episode in season 4, where they fell in love and got married in the bubble universe and stuff. Well, Dr. Geiger's up to his old tricks. He wants to get out, and he wants to be immortal. Now, the reason why he merged Quinn and Mallory together is because he was trying to find a way to merge himself into other people so he can be immortal no matter what. But he could only use certain people that had his own quantum signature. Apparently, Mallory was one of those people. And that's why he started experimenting on him. That's the real reason why he gave him back his legs and stuff like that. Which really upsets Mallory, and he finds that out. He thought Dr. Geiger, no matter how bad he is, was a good man because he gave him back the power of his legs. Anyway, Geiger is bringing people from alternate universes into this world he made up because they share his same quantum signature. And he's merging his imprint onto them. Well, Diane finds a way to not only slide everybody back to their universe, but destroy this big old disintegrating vortex that's pretty much going to destroy the entire multiverse and stuff like that. But she's not able to really slide herself because she has to slide everybody else back before that planet is destroyed. Well, Geiger has this revelation where now he wants to be a good guy and save people and stuff like that. So he pretty much slides her to the next world, and he slides everybody else back, killing himself in the process. Yeah. So after the entire season being bad, now he wants to be good. Okay, now let's get to the final episode. I think it's called The Seer. Back to the Star Trek mess. There's a man who's able to see the sliders slide to every world and follow their life. He's also able to see into the future and see when they are gonna die. More stupidity from the writer. For some reason, he's not watching every person who's ever slid. He's only watching our sliders slide. So he pretty much decides, okay, him and his daughter are gonna create their world to kind of worship the sliders. It's pretty much where on that world they made sliders into a TV show. The real sliders are worshipped. They want to start a religion based on sliders and all this other. So every vision he has of them, he pretty much paints. And he's also dying. So he tells the sliders, look, your next slide is gonna kill you. So do not slide. Just live here in blissful anonymity so you can be worshipped for all time. Now, on this television show that they made of sliders, they had their very own professor and their very own Quinn. And they have a big guy with a beard who resembles our professor, but not really. And since their Quinn Mallory never existed on that planet, they decided we're going to get another actor to play him. Well, our sliders are very much amused by this and they think it's cool, but they want to get back to their world. they find out the world that they're on was also invaded by Cro-Mags, and through the visions they was able to find a virus that only kills Cro-Mags, but every person on the planet is injected with it. So they're like, cool, give us this virus, we go to my home world, Rembrandt's home world, and destroy the Cro-Mag. Well, okay, how are they supposed to get back to Rembrandt's world when the coordinates are wiped clean from his thing, from their timer, because of that living stone? Well, anyways, when they do go to slide, they now automatically know Rembrandt's coordinates, and they're about to slide. Something is blocking their slide and resets the timer back for 3 days. They find out that the people there don't want them to go, mostly the seer's daughter. She wants to keep on cashing in on the money and expenses of the sliders in their lives by keeping them there. So she hired the thugs to break into their hotel and destroy the timer. So now they are stuck there. While on that earth, we meet Mrs. Mallory, the original Mrs. Mallory from season 1 and season 4. And, you know, Quinn's mother. And they think, oh, okay, well, she must be like a duplicate. Oh, no, she's the real one. In fact, after going to like a prison camp, they slid her to that planet where they were able to rescue her, and now she lives there. And she sees Mallory, and she breaks down in tears because she knows exactly what happened to Quinn, who is not really her biological son, because in the 4th season we find out Quinn is not from that earth, but he lived with her, and she hid him from his original parents when they came back to save him. So she starts trying to hug on Mallory. He pushes her off and like, get away from me, lady, you're not my mom, and stuff like that. I'm not your Quinn, and blah, 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 blah. And he goes all Hulk mad and stuff like that. So after Rembrandt starts going to this sliders group, he finds out that, okay, the virus is actually inside every human, and all they have to do is take that blood and synthesize it into a weapon. So now they got to figure out a way to slide. Well, apparently when the Cro-Mags invaded that planet years ago, that they left a lot of their technology back. So our sliders assume that, okay, they must got sliding technology. So they go to try to get the sliding technology, but it's damaged, and oh, here comes the bad girl, and she tries to prevent it and everything. Well, her dad shows up, and they argue. I think he ends up being shot or something like that. I can't remember. And they fight the people off, and Diane tries to work her Star Trek science stuff out, and she's able to get the sliding device up and running, but it's only able to slide one person. Dun 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 dun. So Rembrandt injects himself with the virus, and he said, look, I'm gonna be the only one sliding my planet, I gotta save my planet, blah blah blah. And you people get this device up and running so y'all can slide with me later on. So he slides to his home planet, and we have no idea what goes on because it ends in a cliffhanger. Our new sliders are heartbroken that he left, and they don't know if he made it or not, because supposedly the next slide was supposed to kill them all and stuff like that. So then the show ends like that. And then we have no idea what's going to go on. We never got a movie. We never got a comic book. We never got anything. And that 5th season was the end of a great series, and I am forever pissed off that we will never have another slider show or nothing like that. My opinion is this: it's been about 10-15 years since the show been canceled. Reboot it. I don't care if you have to have new actors or not, just bring sliders back. And that is, of course, the sliders review. Later.